So we have a of whom under the communications media technology are able to dial in, much like yourself, and you're part of the quorum for that purpose, Mr. Chair, and you may proceed.
Okay, yes, I know that this will be a meeting that we do have a physical quorum. So let me just begin by welcoming some people here. I'd like to express our gratitude to Miami-Dade County Commissioner, South Florida Regional Planning Council member, Miami-Dade Transportation Planning Organization Chair, and Vice Chair of the Miami-Dade County Commission. That's a lot of titles for Oliver Gilbert. Is Vice Chair Gilbert present?
Not yet, Mr. Chair.
Okay, when he is, I'll ask him to make some welcoming remarks. And I would also like to thank Eileen. I hope that's Bouclé, or is it Bouclé?
No, Bouclé.
Bouclé.
Okay, I'd like to thank Eileen Bouclé, the Executive Director of the Miami-Dade Transportation Planning Organization, for hosting this meeting at the TPO. I'd also like to thank Elizabeth Rockwell, Chief Communications Officer, for her extra assistance in organizing this meeting. Is Jimmy Morales there? Yeah. I'm sorry?
Yes, he is.
Okay. Jimmy, it's great to see you again. Thank you for being here. As everybody knows, Jimmy is the Chief Operating Officer of Miami-Dade County and is attending this meeting on behalf of Mayor Levine Cava, who herself is the former chair of the South Florida Regional Planning Council. The first time that I became chair of the SFRPC was when Mayor Cava was elected as mayor and had to vacate the position. Jimmy, would you like to make any remarks? Jimmy?
Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
We can.
Isabel, this is what I'll do my comments then, I guess?
I guess so.
Well, this is just, welcoming, we'll be getting to you on later on the specific topic, which will start at 10:45 on the last mile. But if you'd like any general remarks, now would be a good time.
Yeah, and I'll save most of my comments for later. I just want to say good morning to everyone. It's on behalf of Mayor Levine Cava. I want to welcome the South Florida Regional Planning Council to Miami-Dade County. Many moons ago, I think I was a member when I was a county commissioner for a short while. Obviously, thanking Eileen and Bouclé and the TPO for hosting us this morning in this beautiful setting. And it's always a pleasure to see my longtime friend. She's not old, but my longtime friend, Isabel. For many years, we've known each other. As Senator Geller points out, I'm the Chief Operations Officer for Miami-Dade County. And we're glad for what will later be a very important conversation on the future of solid waste management in our region. As COO, I oversee a portfolio of 8 departments that span all of our major infrastructure functions, including transportation and public works, water and sewer, airport and seaport, and of course, solid waste. Want to welcome obviously the folks from the other 3 counties. And we'll talk a little bit about solid waste, but let me close just this morning saying, obviously we are not only wanting to talk today about solid waste issues, but going forward, we want to work very collaboratively as a region on a variety of different issues: transportation, economic development, even applications for National Science Foundation grants and whatnot, which we've made the 2nd round. So, a lot of good stuff, and we look forward as an administration here with our elected officials at MDCC to continue to work on a 4-county basis because we are one region. Political boundary lines being what they are, we are one region, and we sink, rise or sink as a region. So thank you all for being here, and you'll hear from me a little bit later on as a preface before we put our presentation on. Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy. I've known Jimmy for a very long time also, and great guy, and I'm really pleased that he's the COO of Miami-Dade. And again, Mayor Levine Cava knows the value and what the role of the SFRPC is as a former chair herself. One of the things that I have insisted on during my tenure and while I was coming up through the ranks of the officers is saying that the SFRPC has to be fulfilling our name, which is regional planning for South Florida. And I think we're doing more of that, and I look forward to even continuing to do more, even after I'm no longer chair. I will say, Jimmy, that the issue of 3 counties versus 4 counties is a little touchy in that Palm Beach is a member of the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council. I tried poaching them, but that didn't go over very well. And besides, that would require a change in Florida statutes, which set forth the jurisdiction. So the SFRPC is Miami, Monroe, Miami-Dade, and Broward. However, as I think everybody knows, we have a meeting coming up that will be a joint SFRPC and Treasure Coast RPC meeting. I've been notified that we actually have all 3 Miami-Dade County members of the County Commission attending, that Oliver Gilbert, as I said, Vice Chair, Commissioner McGee, who I know very well from Tallahassee, and Senator Garcia, who was absolutely my closest friend in the Florida Senate, all around wonderful person. So I'd like to welcome all 3 of them here today, tell you how happy we are to have all 3 of you there in person. I assure you, if I was in the state of Florida, I would be there. I'm on vacation in Canada right now. Would any of the 3 of you like to make any remarks now? Any of the 3 county commissioners from Miami-Dade?
Thank you, Steve. This is Oliver Gilbert. I'd just like to welcome you all. I'm the chair of the TPO also.
Yes.
And so you are welcome.
Before you got here, I read all of your titles. It took 8 minutes.
Welcome. I came in, I almost said, I was like, Isabel, you're sitting in my seat. But
I'm sorry, I'll switch.
no, we're cool. Yeah, that's all right. I'm welcome. I'm happy to be here. Thank you all.
Thank you. Senator Garcia or Representative McGee?
Thank you, Chairman, and it really is. Thank you all for coming and having the meeting here in Miami-Dade County. I'm committed to making sure that now I start attending the meetings personally, whether they're here or in Broward or they're in Monroe. So welcome to Miami-Dade, and thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Chairman. And again, I echo everything Senator Garcia stated. Secondly, I believe that you left us here. You went to Canada without giving us a heads up. I think that's kind of selfish. But you left your good friends here, but it's okay.
Well, actually, the meeting wasn't scheduled for this date when I made my vacation plans like 5 months ago.
Christmas is tomorrow, sure.
Yes. And by the way, the temperature here, I go to Canada to get away from the heat. The heat index here has been in the 90s. So it just hasn't worked the way I wanted it to. But to the Dade County commissioners who are there in person, I'm really excited to see this. I'd like to thank all of the SFRPC members who've made the extra effort to attend in person. We do need to have the in-person quorum. I'd like to welcome new council staff member Lisa Zumla, who is a new member of council administration. Isabel will say more about that under her director's report. I would like to remind everybody on this virtual meeting, please mute yourself when you're not speaking to avoid feedback. Council staff will be monitoring the chat for public comment. Today we have a full agenda where we will be discussing just a brief overview of the solid waste management in South Florida, because we have an upcoming, as I mentioned, an upcoming 6-hour conference, a joint meeting with the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council, which is Palm Beach County, Martin County, St. Lucie County, and Indian River County. When you combine the 3, Monroe, Dade, Broward, and add in Palm Beach, Martin, St. Lucie, and Indian River, you've got, it's probably, I'm guessing, around a third of the population of the state. And so we will be getting to the discussion, the solid waste discussion, no later than 10:45. I would now like to ask everybody to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Can I ask Jimmy Morales to lead us in the pledge?
Right hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
and
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Let's see, please be advised that I will not personally be monitoring the chat, but hopefully staff will and will let me know if there's anything I need to be aware of. I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the council agenda for today.
Moved.
So moved by Commissioner Kaplan and seconded by Senator Garcia. Is there any discussion, any debate? If not, any objection? Show the agenda adopted without objection. We now, again, that was item number 2. We will get back to item number 3, which is the regional conversation on solid waste management that is set for a time certain at 10:45. However, if we finish the agenda, the rest of the agenda before that, which I hope we will, we may start a few minutes early as long as we take no votes before that. On item Roman numeral 4.
Pardon me, Senator, we need to have the roll call, please. I know it's confusing because I had to combine them. So if we could have the roll call, then we'll be set to go.
Pledge of Allegiance and roll call, I see. Can I ask someone to take the roll and announce the presence of a quorum? I
Bailey,
think that's Kathy.
Bailey,
Present.
Kaplan,
Here.
Kate's,
Here.
Coldiron. Here. Corradino,
Here.
Fur,
Here.
Garcia, Gilbert, Goldberg, Kaufman,
Here.
McGee, Ross,
Here.
Udine,
Here.
Ziotti, here, Andriotta, Wynn,
Here.
Mayers, here, Keller.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Mr. Chair, for the record, this is your attorney again, just to make sure the record reflects that under section 120.525 subsection 4, which adopted in 2020, under Senate Bill 1398, you have a physical quorum present under communication media technologies authorized by state statute. Physical quorum is present, others may participate, and votes do count. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Gorin. We appreciate your continued outstanding service. At this point in time, I will ask for motion to approve the council meeting minutes of June 27, 2022. They have been distributed to all members. Is there a motion to approve? Mayor Udine approved, and who seconded? I think that was Councilmember Kaplan.
That's right.
Okay. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Any additions or corrections? Are there any objections? Are there any objections? Show the minutes adopted without objection. We will now move on to the financial report from Leo Brasowski-Soldi, Director of Finance. Leo, you're up.
Good morning, everyone. So we have our financials on page 1. If you follow me on the balance sheet. For the general fund, assets have decreased in $93,650 as well as total liabilities and fund balance. Federal, state, and local fund, $1,120 increase in the assets as well as total liabilities and fund balance. In the revolving loan funds, there was an increase of $19,267 in the assets as well as in liabilities and total fund balance. And the SFRPI remains unmodified. We go to page 2. We will see the income statement. Total revenues were at 72%. Total expenses were at 65% of the budget for the year when the percentage of the fiscal year lapsed. I'm sorry, it's at 75%. We're in good shape, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Are there any questions on the financials? Are there any questions on the financials? If not, is there a motion to approve the financials?
So moved.
Second.
I heard Mayor Ross approve, and I didn't hear who seconded.
Cold Iron seconded.
And Commissioner Cold Iron seconded. Is there any discussion, any debate, any objection, any objection? If not, show the financials adopted without objection.
Thank you.
We will now move on to Roman numeral 4C, the consent comprehensive plan amendment reviews. I would like to point out that these were previously adopted at our last meeting. Since we were one person short of a physical in-person quorum. We did have a quorum of the executive committee. These were adopted unanimously at the executive committee, but we need to have them adopted at the full meeting. So we will begin. Yes, Attorney Gorin.
These might not exactly have been approved at the last meeting, so if you'll permit me just to open up the public hearing with your concurrence to allow any public comment that might occur on those that are proposed, with your permission, Mr. Chair.
I was just about to, on my agenda, get to the public hearing part. So, Mr. Gorin, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, the items on the public record for public hearing and for those who may have attended to comment, if at all, on these proposals, the City Marathon 22-078 CSC, the City of Miami Beach 22-03 ESR, the City of Sunny Isles Beach 22-01 ESR. And for the record, that would be the end of the proposed items of the land use amendments as proposed. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Attorney Gorin. Let me ask if there are any public comments on any of these items. Are there any public comments on any of these items? Staff, do you have anybody signed up to speak on any of these items?
None.
Okay, since there's no one signed up and no one has spoken, please show the public hearing closed. At this point in time, Sam, these were only on the first three proposed ones, correct?
Correct. The second part of which are the adopteds, which are also on the printed agenda, also available for public hearing as well, Mr. Chair.
Okay, is there anyone here to speak on the 4 adopted ones? Is there anyone here to speak on any of those 4?
Mr. Chair, Senator, may I read them into the record just to make sure the record reflects
I was
those that are.
going to ask you to do that afterwards, but you can do it now.
Senator, thank you very much. Those items for the record are as follows: Broward County, referencing as 22-03 ESR, Miami-Dade County. The second item, which is 21-06 ESR, City of Key Colony Beach, 21-01A CSC, and last but not least, the City Marathon number 22-02A CSC. For the record, all 4 are adopted and require public hearing and comments, if any, from members of the public.
Do we have anyone signed up to speak on any of these items? Staff.
No, Senator.
Okay, is there anyone here wishing to speak on any of those items? Is there anyone from the public here wishing to speak on any of those items? If not, show the public hearing closed. I will note that one of the proposed and one of the adopted are property rights changes as required by the Florida legislature. All right. Now, Sam, can we take one vote after we also adopt the consent adopted at the June 27th meeting, or do we have to vote on these separately?
And for the record, you may, to the extent that their items are clearly articulated on the record. You're looking at items before item number D or including item D.
That's what I'm asking. I'd like to take item D and then vote on all 3.
If you will, we need to read them to the record just to make sure that the record reflects that they're available for consideration.
Okay. Let's open the public hearing on item D, consent items. These were again adopted at the June 27th council meeting while in executive session. However, we did not have a in-person quorum.
And Senator,
Well, actually, no, I'm sorry. Those are not the land use changes. So why don't we, Sam, first vote on the land use changes?
thank you, Senator.
Okay. Is there anything you need to read into the record, Sam, or are we good to go now?
Now, the last part of which is item D, which would be those that would be ratified under the statement of organization, as you articulated earlier.
Right. And in order to adopt just the land use,
Yes, sir.
can we take a vote on them now,
So
or do you
may-
need to read anything into the record?
The record reflects the items.
Okay. We are now going to vote on the proposed and adopted items. We have had a public hearing. There's been no comment. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Being no discussion, is now in order to vote. Is there a motion to adopt the proposed and adopted items to recommend to the
Thank you, Mayor.
state. Is there a motion?
I'll move.
Moved by Commissioner Kaplan, seconded by Mayor Udine. Is there any debate? Is there any objection? Is there any objection? If not, show these adopted unanimously without objection. We are now on item D, the consent items adopted at the June 27th at the June 27th council meeting while in executive session.
Mr.
Sam, would you
Chair?
read those?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I think
You're
some of
recognized,
these
Mr.
require
Press.
a roll call vote.
Okay. Attorney Gorin, do any of these need a roll call vote?
They would, Mr. Chair. These were again, the bound over items from the last meeting in June that did not have a complete physical quorum. The end result of which is under your statement of organization, these items would require separate votes on each. That would be the audit, the minutes, the financial report, the plan reviews as otherwise set forth, and the amended meeting dates that were otherwise approved.
Okay, so that's on item D. The ones we've already adopted, however, are adopted.
Correct.
Okay, let's discuss the audit. First, again, we had a meeting, we had a presentation from our auditor. The vote of the executive committee was unanimous to approve the audit. Are there any questions or discussions on the audit? If not, is there a
The audit.
motion? I'm sorry?
Udine.
Mayor
Udine.
Udine moves the adoption of the audit. Is there a second?
Second.
I heard multiple seconds. Mayor Ross. Seconds. Is there any discussion? Is there any debate? Is there any objection? Call the roll, please. Please call the roll.
Bailey,
Yes.
Kaplan,
Yes.
Kate's,
Yes.
Cold Iron. Yes. Corradino,
Yes.
Fur.
Yes.
Garcia.
Yes.
Gilbert.
Yes.
Kaufman,
Yes.
McGee,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Udine,
Yes.
Yachty,
Yes.
Geller.
Yes, show that adopted unanimously. Sam, do we need separate votes on the remaining 4 items?
Not the minutes, but I would suggest doing so specifically with regard to the financial report.
Okay. Can I do the minutes, the comp plan amendment reviews, and the amended meeting dates together?
These are ratifications. Yes, Mr. Chair, you may.
All right. Are there any questions on either the adoption of the April 25, 2022 meeting minutes, the June 27, 2022 comp plan amendment reviews, and the 2022 amended meeting dates and locations? Again, these were all adopted unanimously at the executive committee. Are there any questions on any of those 3? Are there any questions on any of those 3? Seeing no questions, I will ask for a motion to adopt those 3 items.
So moved.
Moved by, that sounded like Mayor Ross,
Cold Iron seconds.
seconded by Commissioner Cold Iron. Is there any debate? Is there any debate? Is there any debate? Is there any objection? Is there any objection? If not, show these 3 items adopted unanimously. Let's take up now item 4B, the financial report. Are there any questions on item 4B, the financial report? It was remarkably similar to the financial report that you just heard. Are there any questions on the financial report? Seeing no questions, is there a motion to adopt the financial report?
So moved.
I think that sounded like Chair Bailey. Media pass Chair Bailey, and who seconded?
Second.
Okay, I'm sorry, and actually, is it Commissioner Kaplan or Council Member Kaplan?
Council member.
Councilmember Kaplan. Okay, and it's been moved and seconded. Is there any debate? Are there any questions? Is there any debate? Any questions, any debate? If not, do we need a roll call vote on this?
It would be you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, if seeing no debate, please call the roll on item 4B, the financial report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Bailey.
Yeah.
Kaplan,
Yes.
Gates,
Yes.
Cold Iron,
Yes.
Corradino,
Yes.
Fur,
Yes.
Garcia, Gilbert, Hoffman,
Yes.
McGee,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Udine,
Yes.
Ziotti,
Yes.
Geller.
Yes. Show item 4B, financial report adopted unanimously. Let us now move on to the council council dues rate. And I will briefly go over this and then ask Isabel. At our executive committee on April 25th, we unanimously approved this dues increase. The South Florida Regional Planning Council dues are currently the lowest, or either lowest or second lowest of any of the regional planning councils in the state, and by a very substantial number. Isabel, how many years has it been since we've raised the dues?
28 years, Senator.
Okay, we have not raised our dues in 28 years. We are currently at 17.5 cents per member, as had been passed out. A lot of the other RPCs were at 30, 35. I think that isn't Treasure Coast like 40 cents?
43 cents, Senator.
43 cents. We determined that we needed to raise them from 17.5 to 25 cents, which I think will still have us among the lowest or the lowest in the state among the regional planning councils. But we decided to, instead of raising it from 17.5 to 25, we decided to phase it in over, I forget whether it's 3 or 4 years. Isabel, do you recall?
5 years.
5 years.
5 years. Okay, so it's a very gradual increase, which will still have us among the lowest. Isabel, would you like to make any additional comments on this, including why we need the raise and how we're losing our staff?
Well, thank you. You just made my comments, and so it's, I just want to thank everybody. It has been a little bit challenging, especially in this market, to hire and keep staff. And so what I've seen since I've been director over the last 7 years, particularly in the last 4 or so, we've become a training ground for staff. And so they get this great training, this regional perspective, and then they're immediately poached. And so that makes it very challenging. And I also want you to understand that the dues increase is not just to pay people more. It's not that. The dues increase is what allows us to provide match for competitive grants. It helps us keep now abreast of the technology that's come on. But mostly, you know, it actually adds a great deal of stability to the council. So for these reasons and others, I mean, I really would appreciate your support if you can. And I've had some great conversations with the elected Senator Garcia and also Vice Chair Gilbert, and I'm still going to catch up with Commissioner McGee. We've talked a little bit, but it's, you know, when we get out competed for staff, it's not by $5,000, it's $20,000, $30,000, and it's just not sustainable. And
Isabel, as I recall, haven't you been having like $10,000 or $15,000 raises each year?
oh, sure. Oh, sure. Well, now I sort of regret that I didn't ask for those. But no, my raise this year, I think, was 5%, including cost of living.
And prior to that, I believe, how many years was it? Like, hadn't you gone like 6 or 7 years without any raise at all?
This is true. And I'm fine with it.
You need to understand how lean the SFRPC has been. And you know, right now we must hire a deputy because Isabel's sell-by date is rapidly approaching. She has announced her retirement. So is there any discussion on this item?
I move the item.
Second.
Okay, I'm sorry, I did not see who moved it.
Gilbert.
Gilbert moves, seconded by
Ross.
Ross. Is there any debate? Is there any debate?
No.
Is there any debate? Seeing no debate, Sam, can this be voice vote or do we need a roll call?
I would urge the record to reflect your collective vote on the subject, given the nature of the subject itself. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, I think he said that we didn't need a roll call.
I think you should, Mr. Chair.
Oh, you think we should have a roll call? All right, please call the roll on this item.
Bailey,
Yes.
Kaplan,
Yes.
Kate's,
Yes.
Goldire,
Yes.
Corradino,
Yes.
Burr,
Yes.
Garcia, Gilbert.
Yeah.
Hoffman,
Yes.
McGee,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Udine,
Yes.
Ziyadi,
Yes.
Geller.
Yes, sure, that adopted unanimously. And F is conforming because E adopted the dues schedule rate and F is to send out the bill according to the schedule that we have just adopted. Is that correct, Ms. Cosio?
That is correct, Senator. Now that you've approved the increase in the dues, thank you very much. Can't tell you how much that means for us. We would just have to approve this chart has what the bill is going to be under the 20 cents, and all the backup, of course, is there from EDR and everything.
Cooldarn moves to approve.
Motion by Cold Iron to approve. Is there a second?
Yadi.
Seconded by Mary Ziotti. Is there any debate? Is there any debate? Seeing no debate, please call the roll.
Bailey. Bailey. Kaplan,
Yes.
And yes for Bailey, sorry.
there you are, thank you.
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
thank you. Goldire,
Yes.
Corradino,
Yes.
Burr,
Yes.
Garcia, Gilbert,
Yes.
Hoffman,
Yes.
McGee,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Udine,
Yes.
Lottie,
Yes.
Geller.
Yes. By your vote, show the item adopted unanimously. Let me now open the item to the meeting to public comment. Is there any member of the public that has signed up for public comment? The public hearing is now open. Is there any member of the public who has signed up for public comment?
No, Senator.
In that case, show the public comment period now closed. We have about 9 minutes left to get through Roman numerals 5 and 6. All right, let's try and speed through 5. Isabel, you're up.
Thank you again for your support of the council and your many contributions. I'll just quick updates. We are working on a number of regional conversations, and we will be sending out a notice for one on affordable housing with Miami-Dade and Broward and Monroe and Palm Beach counties. Okay, so that's coming up. Please look for a Google poll. It's going to come on 2 dates to see. Also, in terms of planning and regional planning, we are continuing to work towards the October 21st. Now, this will be an in-person meeting at FAU, Florida Atlantic University in Boca Raton. And this meeting will be for the meeting that we are now going to have, following up on solid waste. So, and I want to just appreciate that the guests that have come to help us with this conversation, they really rallied to come because we only knew that this was going to be the conversation about 2 weeks ago for a change in topic. And so in my book, they are all very busy people and heroes for coming together today. So at that October 21st meeting, we're going to have the 7-county meeting on the issues. Prior to their presentation, I will pass out. I emailed it, but it was Sunday and I don't check my email on Sundays most of the time. But I do have a new newish solid waste issue on the electric panels that we need to be talking about. What are we going to do with the new things that are coming down, the electric vehicle batteries, the panels, et cetera, on top of all the issues we currently have. And I want to thank CFO Jim Murley for sending me that article yesterday so I could share it with you. And now when we met some months ago, our 3 counties agreed that one of the big issues that sort of ties everybody together is also first and last mile connectivity to transit. So that would be a 3-county conversation, Monroe, Miami-Dade, Broward. We are working toward that for November 14th. More details will come. We're making progress on the military installation resilience review. Very excited to show that Dr. Neshwat, Julia Neshwat, wrote an article that came out of an opinion article that came out in the Sun Sentinel talking about the importance of this regional effort. So kudos to you for supporting us in this effort. And again, this is an example of what we do with your dues. So very excited to see this. I will share a copy with that. There are some site visits that are going to be coming up for the consulting staff. We continue to look for additional staff support at the council through working with consultant teams. We have a request for qualifications that's out now. This is not a competitive process. It's simply tell me if you're qualified and show me that you are so we can keep on talking. We're hoping to get that done.
Hey, Bill,
And
can you do 30 seconds on the SEDS?
sure, thank you. So as you know, part of what we are, and again, this is part of the place where your dues go, is that we are the Economic Development District for the US Department of Commerce, for EDA. And every 5 years, we create a comprehensive economic development strategy. It's an extensive process. It's not a plan for the council, but a plan for the whole region. Chair Geller kindly agreed to take on this in addition to his other roles, and has been chairing a group of high-level CEOs, presidents of universities, and he can speak to that. And we're coming close to having a draft of the SEDS that will be looking at economic resilience, among other things. And so we will be posting it for public comment after review and also sharing it with all of you to help us get that done. That report is due to the EDA at the end of September, October, I believe. So we're keeping an eye on that. And Senator, perhaps you would like to add something to that.
Nope, because I'm trying to get done in the next 4 minutes.
Okay,
So-
thank you. I'm also
Okay.
pleased to welcome Lisa Rallo-Zumla to our staff. She's a highly trained executive assistant. Her background's been working with boards such as this, and we're very excited to welcome her an extra hand. And Lisa's here, already having braved the drive in South Florida. So there we go. And thank you. That concludes my my presentation. And if you have any questions for me, I'm always available. Thank you all for
Whether
coming.
one of our SEDS committee members is the president of Nova University, George Hanberry, who is present today. President Hanberry, thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any questions on the executive director's report? If not, let's move on to the legal counsel report. Sam Gordon.
Thank you, Senator Chair. Appreciate the time and attention. No time is short for the presentations. Just two quick items. As you know, for those who are new members and those who are old members, this agency is a state agency with an interlocal agreement between the three counties over a period of many, many years. There is a provision under state law, the Florida Administrative Code, which you're bound by and you subscribe to. We as a council, the council as a whole, has a rule on the books called Rule 29J that was adopted when the council was first formed by the state legislature, et cetera. The end result of which is that there have been some changes that have occurred over the past number of years. We've been advised by the folks in Tallahassee that we need to update, revise, and to bring more current the rule that relates to the organization. That rule, for the record, is 29J -2.002, and with the assistance of our executive director and professional staff, we're now proceeding to amend the rule to bring the document current as to location of the organization, all manner of things that require updating to the state. So there will be some items on the agenda coming up over the next couple of months. It's a very tedious process the folks in Tallahassee seek to impose. There's no shortcut to doing so. There are notice provisions, there are advertising provisions, there are public hearing provisions. I will assure you on the record this morning that there's nothing about the changes which are substantive. They're all pretty much housekeeping items that the state reviews us every year. They reviewed us in recent vintage, and because of that, we've commenced to prepare the changes. Well, we've also been consulting with their in-house counsel in Tallahassee. We think we have agreement on the form and content of the document, which shouldn't be of any kind of issue to us. But over the next month or two, with Kathy's great assistance, and Kathy, thank you for engaging with the state over the past number of days for us, you'll be seeing some rule changes that are, again, not substantive, they're procedural, they're housekeeping. They are important, however, and required by state law, and you'll be seeing them over the next 2 months as required by state law. That's one item.
Thank you.
One other item, as you know, Regional Council has a revolving loan program. It is one which is quite renowned. It basically provides opportunities for those who cannot otherwise borrow funds from commercial lenders to produce funds for the purpose of their businesses. Just as a matter of public record, I note this only to the extent that it's out there. There is a current loan relationship with a borrower. Her name is Angela Dawson. It's a public record. She's made a public records request in connection with a pending foreclosure matter that the council has been engaging in for a period of time. And to the extent possible, the staff of the regional council is responding both promptly, appropriately, and consistent with Chapter 119 and producing records in accordance with the statute and consistent with the cost and expense associated with producing records that are allowed to be charged. We are acting in the most professional way we can with the requester. Should any member of the council be contacted independently, I raise it only to the extent that you may need to know that on the record. This is not a personal issue. This is a professional business relationship. The council is currently in litigation with a pending foreclosure matter. It is progressing in the court system. Yet a public records request has come across the desk of our executive director, who is the receiver, the custodian of records, and we need to produce records in accordance with the request, so long as they're both public records and are available. And there's a cost and expense associated with those. But should you be contacted by counsel for any reason, or you see an email, or you see a letter, or you see some document that's a blast out to all members of the council, I wouldn't choose for you to be blindsided by the fact that we are in litigation. We are responding in accordance with state law and will do so consistent with Chapter 119. Other than that, I have nothing further to add, Mr. Chair, Senator, and thank you for the opportunity as always, and nice to be in Miami. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gorin. I have reviewed the issues involved with the Angela Dawson lawsuit. Are there any questions? If not, let me ask.
I had a question.
Yes.
If you would.
Mayor Ross.
Thank you. Sam, are we in mediation or have we attended it and completed it? Impasse, where are we at?
We are past mediation, as far as I recall, Mr. Mayor, the consequence of which is we're currently still locked in litigation.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Gorin, are there any additional questions before we close the legal counsel report? If not, Mr. Gorin, the hour of 10:04, it's now 10:46. We have something specially set at 10:45. I don't know that we will still have quorum if we, after we finish this item. So if we need to, can we roll everything else over to our next meeting and concentrate now the remainder of our meeting on the special set?
Mr. Chair, Senator, if I can, obviously you can do that. I just would ask the executive director to weigh in only to the extent that there may be any item on the remaining portions of the agenda that require specific action today. I would defer to her best judgment, but the answer legally is you may, subject only to the fact that there may be some items that need to be disposed of now versus later where they may be deferred.
Yes, Isabel, if you can advise, I would like to spend the rest of the meeting on the special set item. Is there anything here that we cannot roll over to our next meeting?
I'm happy to report that the board has completed all the action items. It's all good. Thank you.
Okay. In that case, I would like to apologize to Mr. Andriotta, Mr. Nguyen, and Ms. Mayer, respectively from DEP, the FDOT and South Florida Water Management District, as well as Mr. Tart, who is our senior loan officer for the revolving loan fund, because again, we do want to spend the rest of our meeting on the item that we're here on that's specially set. So thank you for that. At this point in time, I would like to revert to agenda item number, what item is that? Item number, here it is, item 3, the regional conversation on solid waste.
Yes.
Let me very briefly tee this off just by saying that the solid waste issue, I know as a county commissioner in Broward, has been extremely difficult for us to deal with. All of the counties are starting to approach a period where our landfills will be full. We all want to recycle, and back in the good old days when you made money from recycling, now we are having to actually pay for recycling if we want it done. There's all sorts of issues on that involving single stream recycling, the fact that people don't know what should be recycled, etc. We are very fortunate in Broward County that Commissioner Beam Fur and Mayor Greg Ross, Cooper City Mayor Greg Ross, are, I believe, co-chairing the county solid waste disposal. I know that Commissioner Fur has been appointed by the county, and I believe that Mayor Ross has been appointed by the League of Broward League of Cities. I know this is an issue that Mr. Morales and Dade is very familiar with. I believe we have on the line, I cannot swear, but I believe that we have on the line people from, let's see, Chaya Kalapanda, Deputy Director, Miami-Dade County Solid Waste Management, Kevin Kelleher, Assistant County Administrator from Broward County, and Cheryl Sullivan, Director of Monroe County Solid Waste. We've asked our guests for a high-level presentation, 10 minutes or less, of the solid waste management operations in your respective counties, including an overview of the issues and challenges you're facing, opportunities for greater collaboration in South Florida or larger Southeast Florida, and any other issues or factors that you deem important. Let me again say we're having a 6-hour substantive meeting on this, where we are inviting, I believe, all of the elected officials in the 7 counties. So today we're not planning on solving anything. We're trying to identify the issues better so that when we have our October regional meeting, which again is a 6-hour meeting, that we will be able to have that a far more productive meeting. So that's a brief overview. What I would like to do is first, in this order, ask Jimmy, I almost said Commissioner Morales, COO Morales for opening comments. After that, I would like to ask Commissioner Fur and Mayor Ross for comments. Then briefly, very briefly, ask any of the other council members for comments, and then I would like to call upon our 3 experts. If instead, after we hear from Mr. Morales, Commissioner Fur, and Commissioner Ross, it may be better to hear from the 3 experts and then throw it open to the rest of the council members for comments. I'd prefer to do it that way, but if any council member wants to speak first, I of course will accept that. COO Morales, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and again, good morning to everyone, and thank you for the FRPC to be here this wonderful morning in Miami-Dade County. I mentioned earlier my portfolio of departments that the mayor has entrusted me with, but if you ask me what keeps me up at night most, it's not necessarily the most exciting of issues, but it's probably among the most, if not the most challenging, and that is where and how are we going to dispose of the trash in the future? Chairman Geller pointed out some of the challenges. In Miami-Dade County, the average person produces more than a ton of garbage per year. Moreover, the waste in our landfills, not only are they approaching the end of life, emits methane, a harmful greenhouse gas that heats up the atmosphere 25 times more than the same amount for carbon dioxide. The challenges to our solid waste system abound, and these problems are impacting local governments across the country, including everyone in this room. Some of these challenges, like the collapse of the market for recyclable goods, are national or international in scope. Changes in consumption habits, the shift to work from home, labor shortages brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic have all put additional strains on our solid waste system. But we also see that our vulnerability to climate change presents unique challenges to our region. As demonstrated by the major flooding we saw during the storms a few weeks ago, which certainly impacted our facilities here in Miami-Dade County. The pandemic has also underscored how essential garbage and recycling services are for the community. Our solid waste workers were crucial to the health and welfare of our neighborhoods. They provided critical frontline response, removing debris after emergencies and natural disasters. I would note that without the assistance of our solid waste department last summer, the first responders at Surfside could not have undertaken the painstaking search and rescue efforts after the tragic building collapse. As our population continues to grow, so does the urgency of planning for the future. As many of you know, Mayor Levine Cava is passionate about the environment and is committed to finding ways to reduce Miami-Dade County's greenhouse gas emissions. I've never met anyone more committed to recycling, for example. Back in December of last year, the mayor released her climate action strategy, which includes an entire chapter outlining our approach to water and waste. At this point, I do want to recognize just that because they're here with me now. We have our Chief Resiliency Officer, Jim Murley. We have Kimberly Brown, the mayor's Chief Sort of Planning Officer. Sean McCracken, the Senior Policy Advisor to the Mayor. Leah Weston, my Senior Aide. And you'll be hearing shortly from, at the time of experts, Atraya Kalapanda, our Deputy Director. These and many others who are part of this team. Converting waste to energy is going to become a key component of our strategy, as the BCC has also already voted, when it comes to solid waste management. Right now, we send about half of the waste we collect in our service area to our resources recovery facility in Doral to be burned and processed. That facility is now 40 years old and reaching the end of its useful life. The technology has come a long way, as we saw for ourselves a few months ago when we visited the facility in Palm Beach with our mayor and our chairman, Diaz, up in Palm Beach County. We're now undertaking the beginning steps toward building a new state-of-the-art facility, waste energy facility. We do not believe that sending hundreds of trucks to Central Florida daily to landfills there is a reasonable alternative. Our wastewater treatment plants and landfills will also be outfitted with better technology to capture and extract more biogas, and soon we'll unveil our first fully electric garbage truck. We also need to focus on a long-term strategy of reducing waste. We need to better commit to recycling in Miami-Dade, and we can again certainly learn more from our neighbors, and even things like composting and other strategies need to be explored. To make it all possible, we are aggressively pursuing all grant funding and exploring opportunities for regional partnership. Shortly after President Biden signed the bipartisan infrastructure law, Mayor Levine Cava asked me to convene an infrastructure working group to facilitate cross-departmental collaboration on upcoming federal and state infrastructure grants. These are just a few of the approaches we're pursuing here in Miami-Dade. Deputy Director Kalapanda, when it's his turn, will go into a little more detail. But we know the issues are larger than just one county can tackle. I'm looking forward to exchanging ideas today and at the larger gathering of 7 counties in October, and thank you for hosting that. Thank you again to the South Florida Planning Council for convening us on this critically important topic.
Thank you, sir. And again, we will be calling on you again in just a few moments, or your staff. At this point in time, I would like to ask for brief opening comments from Broward County. First from my colleague on the commission, Commissioner Furr, and then from my mayor, because I live in Cooper City, Mayor Greg Ross, after which I will call on Commissioner Coldiron, who I understand is the lead for Monroe, for brief comments, after which we'll hear from our 3 experts. Pardon me, after which I will throw it open for council member comments. Let me also ask, I saw again, President Hanbury on it. President Hanbury wants to make any remarks, President Nova. I will call on him after Commissioner Coldiron. Commissioner Furr, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you very much. Well, I think Mr. Morales framed this very well. It sounds almost exactly where Broward is in many ways, with the exception of the amount of waste that's going to your WTE. We had almost that same amount going to our WTE. I mean, until we had one dismantled. So we are in a whole different position where we have about 4 million tons of garbage, but we only have 800,000 capacity with WTE, which is making us to really rethink how we're doing it. Over the last 5 years, Greg, something like 6 years, we've been working with, because the county is has a small part of the garbage. This is kind of fallen in the laps of the cities, and they've seen a tremendous change in what the cost is for recycling, et cetera. So we are working together right now and trying to put together an authority, much along the lines of what Palm Beach is doing. We're working on an interlocal agreement with all 30 cities. We couldn't get lazy lately. 22 people there didn't want to come. I don't know why. We're working on that interlocal agreement now, and hopefully at our next meeting we actually finish. That's going to then go back to all the cities, gives us a chance to start to put together a master plan that would be looking at how we're going to be doing recycling, whether or not we need to add another burner to the WT that we have now, or do we have to, or at some point, another WT entirely. And the exciting part of that is it does open the door for possible regionalization and starting to look at how can we work with the other counties in recycling and different things. Maybe not every county wants to do glass recycling, but maybe one could. Maybe, others may want to be doing, might be able to specialize in one thing. We specialize in something, Palm Beach, and then we can kind of work that way. But I think we all agree, none of us want to be sending trucks after truck after truck after truck up to Central Florida. That doesn't make sense. So the last part is I do think that there's opportunities here for creating a circular economy that has not been really looked at that much. How can we together maybe create a consortium of putting together all the resources? If we're all recycling plastic or whatever it is, coming together and having almost like a one-stop shop and asking the best and the brightest and the innovators and the entrepreneurs of this county and this country to come together to try to do manufacturing here and try to find a way where we can actually create things from those resources and actually be able to use those in these counties. And I think that's where the opportunities are. And I think that's where this body can really kind of look to kind of foster that and shepherd that through and find out how we can, work together on this. And I know over the next work, we've kind of looked at our own game plan over the next 18 months of creating a master plan for how we're going to deal with this. Over that time period, I think this is one of the places where we should be having some of those conversations. And I look forward to working with not only Miami-Dade County, but Monroe County and Palm Beach County. And hopefully we can come up with a game plan that works for everybody. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, for excellent remarks. Let me now call on my mayor, Mayor Greg Roth.
Thank you. Mr. Morales indicated that solid waste is not exciting. I agree with him. It's also not sexy, but it is an attractive challenge. And that's what we have to be able to come here at the South Florida Regional Planning Council and utilize your services, if nothing but as a liaison, if you will, so that the ideas are passed through all the different counties. And I say different counties because I'm going to go ahead and include Palm Beach as well. I think it's important. We in Broward have learned from Palm Beach. We and being first the vice chair of the solid waste working group, I happen to be the chair just merely about for the past year. But we've been working on this for about 6 years now, and we've ultimately come up with, and what will be presented is our ILA agreement, which we expect all 31 cities in addition to the county to sign on to. And that is an exciting step forward. And what we're trying to attempt to do is nothing different than what Dade is doing and Palm Beach is doing and Monroe is doing, and that is to reuse, reduce, and recycle. And we can work together. And Beam, I think, hit it on the head, where maybe, Dade will do one area, we'll do another. And of course, the question always becomes transportation costs, and it always comes down to the almighty dollar. But working together, I think we'll be able to solve this problem, because you know it and I know it. It's only a finite amount of landfill that we have, and we cannot keep filling it up. We need to reduce, recycle, and reuse. So having said that, I'll let the experts tell you how.
Thank you, Mayor Ross. And again, as you had indicated, and as everybody has said, the finances are certainly an important issue. Public historically and local governments were used to making money from recycling. That's not the case anymore. But at the end of the day, even if it is more expensive, we have to come up with an alternative, both because we're running out of space and because, as COO Morales pointed out, the amount of methane being given off, and methane is, far worse of a greenhouse gas than CO2. We just have to do something, and let's just try and figure out what. At this point in time, I'd like to call on Commissioner Coldiron on behalf of Monroe County.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Thank you for that. And good morning, fellow commissioners, council members, excuse me, I don't remember where I was. I'm just going to add to what Mayor Ross said. While this topic of waste management might not be sexy, it certainly is one that several months ago, when we all met and had a debate on what we wanted to bring forward as our next discussion item with our other, with the Treasure Coast, this is the one that was most exciting for me. In Monroe County, we have even more challenges that the rest of the counties do in the fact that we don't have any active landfills. And while we might only have 34,000 residential units and only 82,000 residents, our numbers swell to millions with our visitors who bring in their trash. And so we have more challenges than the rest of us do. And we truly do rely on our neighbors for here up north for us with our waste management challenges. And therefore, I'm really happy that you all invited Cheryl Sullivan, the director of our solid waste management, to be on this panel. And I look forward to the professionals and what they're going to add to this conversation. And with that, I yield the floor.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Cosio, let me ask one question since I'm not there in person. Can you confirm, is right now I have on my list one person each from Miami-Dade, Broward, and Monroe counties? Are all three of them there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. In fact,
In that case, okay. I'm sorry?
Alabama and Ms. Sullivan is on virtual.
Okay, I will call on them then in the order that they are listed in. And their bios are available in the council package. Let me first call on the Deputy Director of Miami-Dade County Solid Waste Management, Achaya Kelapanda. You're recognized.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for having me, and I'm pleased to see that the council recognizes the importance of solid waste management planning and the bearing it has on our communities. So this morning, what I plan doing is talking about what the Department of Solid Waste Management does, identifying challenges and potential opportunities that we have, and also then talking about areas of potential collaboration.
Sir, we can't hear you anymore.
Give me a second, so I'm getting waiting for my presentation to come up. I apologize.
We'd be concerned if you could hear him at that point.
So while he's bringing up my presentation, let me move on and talk about what the department does. What we have is a fully integrated solid waste management system that provides collection, transfer, and disposal opportunities. It's the largest publicly traded solid waste collection and disposal system in the Southeast. What that means is the trucks that we use to collect our garbage are owned by the county. The drivers that drive those trucks are my fellow county employees. The landfills, the transfer stations are owned and operated by Miami-Dade County. The waste to energy plant is owned by Miami-Dade County, but operated by Covanta. We provide waste collection services to over 340,000 households, over a 320 square mile radius. And we also process about 1.8 million tons of waste that's generated in Miami-Dade County. Now, the county generates on a whole about 4.8 million tons, we manage about 1.8 of that 4.8 million tons. And the department also oversees the Mosquito Control Services Program, where we manage mosquito traps, monitoring, and treatment. So in terms of the services that we provide twice a week garbage collection service, once every other week recycling services, up to 50 cubic yards of bulky waste pickup. As far as our disposal operations go, we have 13 trash and recycling centers. These are really good, convenient centers where people can drop off their bulky waste. We've got 2 landfills. We've got a class 1 landfill and a class 3 landfill. We have the waste to energy plant. And like Chief Morales said, we send about over 1.1 million tons of the waste that we manage to the resource recovery facility. We also have 2 home chemical collection centers. If you've been to a home chemical collection center, it's really cool. As against dispose of the chemicals, unused paint that you generate in your household, you can bring it to one of our centers and say, for instance, you pick up pink. You pick up some pink paint thinking you're going to paint a room pink and then change your mind. You can drop the paint off at one of these collection centers, and somebody else who has a use for that paint can then pick it up and reuse it as against let it go to waste. We have our code enforcement division to make sure that our residents comply with the regulations that we have in place. And like I said, we also manage mosquito control. So here's what we've identified as challenges and potential opportunities that we have in Miami-Dade. Again, going back to what Chief Morales said, landfill capacity should come as no surprise. We do have aging infrastructure, and I'll speak a little more to it. The competition for human capital is always challenging. And in terms of how we manage these challenges, the nice part about challenges is it opens up to new opportunities. And so we've looked to innovative design and better land use to manage some of these challenges. I'll go through this very quickly. Now, this is our Knockdale landfill. And the Knockdale landfill is what we call a class 3 landfill. We take non-putrescible waste, anything that doesn't produce what we call leachate. We have 2 cells. The west cell is closed, and then we have an active east cell. I was talking to you about capacity. We only have capacity through 2026, and we receive up to about 250,000 tons of waste at this landfill. The other landfill that we have is the Southdale landfill. It's a class 1 landfill. So class 1 landfill is non-hazardous waste that's generated in your household. We take about 550,000 tons of waste at this landfill. You can see those numberings there, and they represent cells. So the first 3 cells have been closed. The 4th cell is at capacity, and we're placing waste in the 5th cell. Again, we take about 550,000 tons at this landfill. And in terms of capacity, the landfill is expected to reach capacity by 2032. Now, the thing to consider is all these projections are based on normal years and don't include any hurricanes, waste generated from any major storm events. As far as infrastructure goes, most of our infrastructure is anywhere from 30 to 40 years old. Again, like Chief Morales said, we're in the planning phases of a waste to energy plant. The plant is over 40 years old. Our transfer stations, collection facilities, and our maintenance shops have all gone through the 40-year recertification. And right now, some of them are going through 50-year recertifications. So what this really means is we have a lot of systems that were designed 30, 40 years ago, and it has been difficult for us to make them efficient based on new technologies, new challenges that we live in. So yes, we have some challenges. And so how do we overcome those challenges? We have looked at vertical expansions as one way to increase landfill capacity. I'm sure the council recognizes that the last landfill, the last class 1 landfill permitted in the state of Florida was in 2004. So permitting a landfill is not easy, it's extremely difficult. And so the question is, how do you make use of the existing resources to continue to save and keep landfill capacity? And a vertical expansion is a fairly convenient and not so intense way to add additional capacity. If my director was here today, here to talk to you about innovative designs, you know, we generate waste within our communities, and too often we'd like to see the waste go away and not know anything about it. In today's world, it's really hard to try and send them to distant lands and distant places. And so on the right top, what you see is a waste to energy plant that was built in the city of Copenhagen. They've incorporated the longest ski slope. It's the longest artificial ski slope. And it's based in a city that's essentially flat. So what could have been a distraction is now an attraction.
Are you suggesting, sir, that we build a ski slope, an outdoor ski slope in Florida?
Well, I guess we can always work on it, could we not? So I guess the bigger question really is, how do we incorporate these systems? We generate waste in our communities and expect it to go away. The question is, how do we make it part of our communities and try and manage it within our communities itself? I was telling you, so in the city of Minneapolis, they have the waste to energy plant downtown. And what they've done is the steam from the plant is then used for heating and cooling of the Twin Stadium. Now, when you run out of options and you have to look at repurposing landfills, I think some of the counties have done really well. We've got soccer fields, outdoor activities, open spaces. I use Vista View and Dyer Park as examples of landfills that were closed and then have been repurposed. I was talking to you about human capital. And so in the county, we've got a robust system of succession planning, training programs so that drivers understand what their job expectations are, and then more importantly, investing in our people. As far as regional partnerships go, we've identified waste to energy, materials recovery facilities, and compost processing facilities as areas of collaboration. So we spoke to you about how we are looking at a new waste to energy plant. The county in a whole generates about 4.8 million tons. So there's plenty of additional waste for future use at one of these waste to energy facilities. Right now, the material recovery facility that we send our waste, our recyclables to, is close to capacity. And so it's really important for us to try and identify additional capacity. And that way we can control the waste streams, the kinds of recyclables that we plan recycling, and also manage the end product. We don't have a compost facility in the county, and that is something that we would like to look towards. Unfortunately, we're bound by fairly strict environmental regulations. We've got the Everglades to the west, the National Park to the east, and so land is not available in Miami-Dade County, and this requires a fairly large footprint, and it makes for an interesting collaboration with the adjoining counties. That's pretty much my presentation for Miami-Dade. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Let me just ask one question, and I'll ask it of you, but we may hear the answer to that from some of the other people. On the waste to energy, actually, I've got two questions, but you don't have to answer now. One is on the waste to energy. I know that there's a ash residue, obviously, after that occurs. You know, I'd like to hear about, you know, any environmental issues with that waste, because that, I think I'd heard at some point in time that that may be containing mercury. And I just want to make sure that we're not creating an additional problem with waste to energy. And then the second thing is, again, in reference to the parks, you know, we frequently find that when we do things and repurpose them, that 20 years later, we find that what we've really been doing is doing something that is, causing cancer of one type or another. We want to make sure that we're not doing anything that in the future can subject our children to a higher risk. And let me perhaps see if our next speaker can address those issues based on questions that you raised. So at this point in time, I think our next speaker is Kevin Kelleher. Kevin, are you on the line or in person present?
He's here
Kevin
with us.
Kelleher. I'm sorry?
He's coming up to the podium. He's here with
Great.
us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Again, I apologize for not being there in person. This is the first meeting that I have missed in quite some time.
Okay, good morning. I'm Kevin Kelleher, Assistant County Administrator.
And all around good guy.
Thank you, Chair. Just a little background on Broward, and I'm also going to echo what Mr. Morales said earlier today. This is one of those areas that keeps me up at night. I'll be honest, I'm a neophyte to the solid waste game, having joined on this project about a year ago. And for me, I was like every other consumer out there where you take the garbage out to the curb and it magically disappears. But at this point, we're focused with limited land out here, and the landfilling and shipping up to the central part of the state is not an option. We need to find other solutions to this, and we have to become more self-sufficient. So with respect to Broward, we're 1.9 million population. We're the second largest county, second to Dade County, with and we have 11% increase in population since 2010. We're made up a little bit differently than Miami-Dade County, where we have 31 municipalities and a very small unincorporated area. Less than 1% is the county's unincorporated area population-wise. We generate 4 million tons of waste that is generated this past year. And if you look at it, while the population grew 11% since 2010, our trash for the last 10 years grew over 25%. So it's growing in a disproportionate fashion. Different than Miami-Dade County is Broward County has the majority is privately owned facilities, including a waste to energy and a class 1 landfill. And as Commissioner Furr indicated, it's one waste to energy facility. We had 2 at one time, but that closed down. Broward County only owns a class 3 landfill and 3 drop-off centers for household hazardous waste. Realizing the importance of this issue and this, a few years ago, the cities through an ILA process got together and created a solid waste working group, which you're lucky to have 2 members on this board, on this council. The chair, Mayor Greg Ross, and vice chair is Commissioner Beam Furr. There's 9 members, and they've been working together to come up with a solution or approach to solid waste for Broward County, but it certainly is to position us so we can work closely with other counties, because this is a regional issue, because it's the same issue that's facing us all in this area. Currently, as Chair Ross had indicated before, that they're developing a governance structure. They're on the cusp of having an ILA that's going to go out to all the cities and the counties. That's going to set up an authority. With that authority, one of the first orders of business that the authority is going to conduct is a master plan to find out what facilities and what other actions they should be taken. A couple of other preparatory actions that the county has taken is through the solid waste working group is a waste generation study, a waste composition study. They're doing revenue requirements and financial projections to help create the authority so we can hit the ground running. And as I mentioned, the master plan, which is upcoming. We have this label as regional solid waste issues, but these issues, but these are opportunities. These are opportunities for not only one county, but us to join together and have a collaborative approach to addressing these issues. As I indicated, solid waste is a common issue
among all the counties in this area. Each of us have our own different approaches, each of us have our own different needs, but at the end, finding a resolution to addressing solid waste is important to each one of our communities, and I'm sure you'll hear the same from the Treasure Coast. We've classified these into 4 general areas. It's waste capacity. Broward County, while we're probably a couple of decades behind Miami-Dade in some of our facilities, but the aging and lack of disposal facilities is a major concern. We need to leverage waste disposal systems to take advantage of economies of scales. That's a great opportunity for, if the county is looking at the approach of getting all the cities together for economies of scales, just think of the economies of scales when you have, a couple of major counties partnering together. And then if you had the whole Treasure Coast where 1/3 of the population, that's the incredible economies of scales that can come out of that. There's also the opportunity to explore opportunities for other waste reduction diversion programs. So we stopped the landfilling, and there was an approach that was said earlier today here is maybe one county focused on one area, another county focused on another area, and then another county focused on a third area, and then share those resources. And that collaborative approach will help us move that forward and get those waste reduction diversion programs. The recycling, these are issues that are facing everybody as well. As before, we used to be able to sell our recycling. Now it costs to recycle. There's contamination issues. There's the higher processing fees. Many municipalities are suspending their curbside recycling program services because it costs them money. And we need to kind of reverse that trend, because recycling is going to be a necessary product here, because we can't keep landfilling. And that leads us to innovative waste technologies. We need to the biosolids. We need to have a better manage and process disposal of biosolids. That's the waste that comes from the wastewater. The county and the cities in Broward have another working group that's dealing directly on the issue of biosolids and trying to come up with solutions for how to handle biosolids. As Miami-Dade also indicated, composting and organic waste processing is also going to be very important in the future. And then the education, public outreach, I think we all have our hands in. But again, as the neophyte in the room coming here, just people need to understand that the trash does not just magically disappear every couple of days from your curb. They need to realize that this is a long, this is an issue that we need to address. We need to come up with solutions so we are self-sustainable. Unless you have any questions, that's all I got today.
Thank you, Kevin. Again, we'll be getting back to you shortly after we hear from Monroe County. One of the issues that I'm going to want to bring up before we leave is just, again, trying to narrow the scope of what issues you want to talk about, what questions you want to ask and try and answer at our October meeting. So I'm going to ask everybody to start thinking right now about those issues, because after we hear from Monroe County, I'm going to raise that question to everyone. At this point in time, I would like to call on Cheryl Sullivan, the Director of the Monroe County Solid Waste Management. Ms. Sullivan, thank you for being here today. Ma'am, you're recognized.
Thank you so much. First, I would like to thank the council, and I would thank Isabel for including me in this discussion and this very important subject matter that we all share. So if you'll give me just a moment here and let me see if I can't get my presentation pulled up. I'm going to share my screen, so if someone could just let me know that you're seeing it, because once I do that, I won't be able to see you.
Not yet. We now see your presentation, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you so much. My name is Cheryl Sullivan, and I am the director with Monroe County Solid Waste Management. And to give you just a little bit of information. There it goes. Oh, hang on. Let's see.
Your presentation is gone.
Okay, I've got to figure out how to get it back. I apologize.
Since I personally operate at a Fred Flintstone level of technology, I think you're doing great.
Well, I'm trying to get back to the beginning, and for some reason, it's not letting me do that. Let's see if I can start this over again. I apologize.
Don't worry, Mrs. Sullivan. Thank you.
Would you like us to start doing some discussion? Oh, you got it. Okay.
I think I've got it now. So, how does Monroe County handle their waste currently? So Monroe County has 4 contracted collection franchisees. The municipalities of Key West and Islamorada have separate collection franchisees, and they administer those. Monroe County has haul out and disposal contract for MSW and mixed recycling with waste management, and a separate haul out and disposal contract for yard waste, which is then turned into compost with the Brownie Company. Key West also manages their own haul out contract. Monroe County owns 3 transfer stations located throughout the Florida Keys. Scale house operations are run by county staff, employees, and the tipping floor operations and maintenance, they're handled by our haul out contractor. Again, Key West does administer their own transfer station. So kind of what does that mean to put it into perspective? So for 2022, there will be approximately 34,500 residential household units receiving collection service. And that service consists of garbage twice a week, recycling once a week, and yard waste once a week. Our commercial collection is handled by the franchise haulers, and construction and debris is handled by our specialty haulers, which currently we have 27 active specialty haulers that work throughout the Keys. Our household hazardous waste and electronic waste is collected at the transfer stations and mobile collection points throughout the Keys with county staff, and is then moved to the mainland for proper disposal. For some reason it's not moving. So what that means is municipal solid waste for FY22 is approximately 89,000 tons. Recycling will be approximately 8,600 tons, and yard waste will be approximately 25,700 tons. So everyone hopefully on this call has been to the Keys. The Keys is a very unique area. You know, we have the 3rd largest living coral reef, and those are wonderful things. But some of the challenges, what makes Monroe County very unique in regards to solid waste, is we have 120 miles requiring government services out in a linear fashion. So what that means is we have
We're losing you.
We're having problems hearing you, Ms. Sullivan.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Thank you, I'm sorry. So we have 120 miles of government services that we have to spread out. There's one road in and there's one road out. It's got 42 bridges, begins in Key Largo, and it serves as a gateway to the mainland of Florida. So what that does for us is there's a limitation of land and open space. And also Monroe County is an area of critical concern. So when you look at those challenges that we have when it comes to solid waste, you have a unique situation, you have the challenges, and that also is an increased cost. There are no open landfills in Monroe County. They were closed in 1992. So all of our waste, garbage, recycling, vegetation, household hazardous waste, and electronic waste must be transported out of the Keys. Critical environment impacts to the nearshore waters. We have protected wildlife reserves, and the travel distance limit viable options. A large portion of
Sullivan, we're losing you again.
I'm sorry, I don't know why I don't have that. I apologize. A large portion of recycling in the Keys is glass, which is very heavy for transportation. And we have illegal dumping and nearshore pollution. So where does it currently go? Our MSW, we have 60% that goes waste to energy, and we have about 40% that goes to the landfill. Recycling, 100% goes to a MRF center, material recovery facility, and 100% goes of the vegetation goes to a composting facility. So a summary of what some of our biggest challenges going forward are: we have a lack of recycling options. The 75% recycling rate is a huge challenge. We are a tourist community. We have a lot of glass. And so there's a possibility that our haul out contractor will no longer want to accept glass as a recyclable commodity. That's a huge concern for us. Illegal dumping and nearshore water pollution. We do have, again, a lot of boaters, a lot of anglers, and it does generate tremendous amounts of nearshore pollution. And with that comes a lot of illegal dumping. County options for disposal and or to reuse. We have no available land to construct a waste to energy, a gasification, or composting. We are extremely limited, and we are a very fragile environment. Plus, Monroe County does not generate enough feedstock to solely operate an alternative method of disposal. I was listening to some of the numbers previously from the other counties and areas, and we don't have that. And so we couldn't even construct something here if we could find the land in the area. Long-term limits on landfills are limited landfills in South Florida, and they are slowly being used up as what we heard previously. So future thinking and thoughts, I think we all share the same concerns. Where do we put it? And what is the environmental impact to our communities, the health, the water, the air, the wildlife? It was said previously, people put their trash out and it just goes away. And then when you start thinking about, okay, where's it going? Nobody wants it in their backyard. And so these are challenges that we all face. With those challenges and the new innovations that are out there to us, whether it be waste to energy, gasification, it all comes with a cost. And then who is going to act on all of those points? And I think we all have to. I think we're all going to have to work together. We're all going to have to share the costs. I think we're going to have to look out to the entrepreneurs and the people who have a passion for this and think outside the box and look at what's out there. And I think more than anything, we're going to have to work together because it is a problem that locally we have, the state has, and then our entire nation is experiencing the same thing.
Is that all, Ms. Sullivan?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Members, you've heard from our three experts. Again, the Deputy Director, Miami-Dade County Solid Waste Management, the Assistant County Administrator from Broward, and the Monroe County Solid Waste Management. Again, the main purpose for today's meeting is to try and determine exactly what we're going to be doing at our October meeting. And what I'd like to bring up primarily is what questions we're answering right now. So let me first call on Senator Garcia. I understand he will be leaving shortly, as to what issues you think really need to be specifically addressed at our October meeting. What questions, again, whether they're environmental, how we're going to pay for things, etc. Senator Garcia, you're recognized, sir.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to thank the committee and all the folks that are here today. When we look at the issue of waste management, that is something that really directly impacts us all. And we made a couple of comments. It's something that's not glamorous. We don't want to talk about it. It's just something we put our garbage out and disappears. But as someone that has been in public health for 20-something years, this has not only an aesthetic looking issue for municipalities or communities, but it really does have a public health impact on all of us. So the fact that we're having these conversations right now, I can't believe I'm going to say I'm excited about garbage, but I'm getting excited about this because it really is a huge issue. I think this is what these are the type of issues that I think the council, together with the three counties working together, can find a solution if we put all our heads to it. And I love the idea of this tri-county idea of seeing if one county does more recycling on glass or on garbage, waste to energy. Those are, sorry, Mr. Chairman, I'm going on a soapbox here, but
please pour your soap, Mr. Senator.
For me, I just went out to the Covanta dump, I guess, or landfill, not too long, sometime last week. And the idea of waste to energy is something that we need to focus a lot of our time on, I think. And then we have to also focus on the issue if we go down the fact of waste to energy, find out what the impediments are to get that energy out to the public or get that energy out to the consumer. And I think a big part of that, we may have to deal with FP&L as well. And what state regulatory, what's the state regulations as it relates to getting that energy out to the folks, getting that energy out or sold to our own facilities. That's one. And number two, I think we have to be, Mr. Chairman, I think it's important for us to be very honest with the public. I don't think the public understands the recycling issue, the lack of recycling. We're putting all these things out to recycle, and just a fraction of it is actually being recycled. I think we have to be honest to the cost, because I think a lot of times we're moving away from, and the reason I say is because I saw the issue with the city of Hialeah. The city of Hialeah right now is having a battle with recycling. It's costing them more money to recycle than it used to. So, at the end of the day, it's dollar and cents for our residents. And maybe, we just have to come out, and I was talking to Mayor Cordino about the public awareness campaign, so people could understand the realities of recycling and the cost of it and how to do it and what are the things that we need to recycle. But with all that said, I think this tri-county effort is something that we can definitely make an impact in South Florida. So I look forward to what will come in October, but really the waste to energy for me and the public awareness campaign are the ones that we need to figure out. And just be honest, what is it we can recycle? What is it? Is it glass? Is it this? Is it cardboard? Because the public doesn't know. I don't even know. And I'm trying to do my own research to figure this out, because waste is a big deal. And this is something that affects us all. So sorry to getting on a soapbox, Mr. Chairman, but something that I think we can have a direct impact to this council.
Senator Garcia, we really appreciate your remarks because they're spot on. including the part where you're talking about, educating the public. Right now, the public doesn't really understand, and one of the things I think a lot of the stuff that we are having people recycle, my understand is they're putting it in the blue bins and then it's just being basically mixed into the general solid waste stream in a lot of cases, because it's just not being sorted appropriately. So educating the public is one thing, making them realize the cost. Again, I'm hoping some of our experts, I just want to make sure when we're dealing with the waste to energy that we're not creating with the ash a horrible environmental hazard. That's just something I'm not an expert on. So I'd like to hear now from any of the other council members first as to what, or the experts, as to what questions again need to specifically be coming up, because that's what we're trying to do today, narrow the focus of our October meeting. Who else would like to speak on this?
Sure.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, who's speaking, please?
Kaplan here.
Council member or commissioner, you're recognized, sir.
This is an interesting and I think overdue briefing. I find in my own just anecdotal reaction to what I see out in the public that there's poor awareness of what actually happens in solid waste. And so the function of public awareness seems to me to intersect with something that our council might do for our cities, maybe even in advance of meeting in October, something in the nature of a briefing paper. One of the elements of which has to do with material recovery and what exactly happens in recycling and how the economics of recycling either works or is supposed to work. I don't understand any of that, and I'd like to. And I think that also dovetails with whether, and this is maybe a topic for consideration, as a sensible public policy initiative, whether it makes good sense to either incentivize by some way or another, or actually direct by legislation, greater use of biodegradable and recyclable materials. And with recyclable materials, meaning efficiently recyclable materials. So those are just a couple of off the cuff thoughts. How the economics works and what actually happens in recycling, what the process is and what the product that results is are things that I'd like to understand better.
Thank you, Commissioner. Who else? Do any of our three experts or Mr. Morales, Chief Morales, I guess, do any of you have any comments as to what specific questions and topics we should be addressing in October?
Chair, I'll jump in here for a minute, okay?
Commissioner, you're recognized, sir.
First of all, thanks for all the presenters. It's interesting to hear the difference between each county. And there is a real distinction there. And each one of us has our challenges. The challenges that Monroe has are ones I didn't know of, especially when I think of all the tourists going down there and all the bottles of beer. I think all that glass, I'm going, where does all that go? Yeah, exactly. But all of us have an issue with glass, and I'll just pick on glass for a minute. And I know when we had the Resource Recovery Board in Broward County, we actually asked we put in a kind of an all call out throughout the county, and they were finding ways to use it to re-nourish the beaches and really just crunch it up again and turn it back into sand. And they did it on Hollywood Beach as test cases, where you could see if it was 75% sand, 25% recycled, 50-50, 25-75. And honestly, you couldn't tell the difference. And it was like, we're spending $75 million this year on recycling our beach, on renourishing our beach. And when you think of, well, can some of that go there? Probably. And I saw one county, St. Lucie County, decided to go ahead and recycle their glass. And now they've found a huge market for it. Why? Because now, especially with the infrastructure bills, glass is used as an aggregate for building roads. So where before there wasn't a market, there is a market. And I think that's one of the key things that we as 3 counties need to look at. How do we create demand for those products? When we're thinking, and plastic is another one. There's so much stuff in this one room that could be made out of plastic, whether it's a rug, whether it's some chairs, and each county has all of these things, all of our parks, all kind of things. We need to say, here's the demand that we ourselves can create. And then we start to find the manufacturers that can take those resources and make it. We haven't done that. But that's that circular economy that if all of us start to look at, there's a couple of main, and I'm sure the solid waste people already know this, but there's a couple of links. I think it's called Waste Dive and Waste 360 daily. They have papers coming out that talk about the different ways of using things, the different kind of manufacturing that's going on. And what we want to do is kind of, a good example, one is in Georgia, they're making seawalls out of plastic. Well, this may be a place where we might be able to use some of those, but that's in Georgia, that's not here. So how do we start to find ways of doing that here? That's what I would love to see this. I think Chair Geller, you're asking, where do we want to go with this? I do think deciding what the demand is locally and how do we create that demand is one part of it. The other part of it is, how do you use that fuel that's being used that's being created at the WTEs? I just saw one place that is using the heat coming from that to pelletize all of the solid waste. All of the biosolids, and pelletizing it instead of having all this sludge having to be taken up to the central part of the state. All those biosolids, which is why we're meeting with Treasure Coast, because we're guilty of that right now. We're sending all of our, not all of it, but a lot of our biosolids up to Martin County and Okeechobee County. If we just pelletize it, we don't have to do that anymore. Right now, the waste energy plants used to be, it was a good, waste management got into that because they could make money with selling the electricity. They can't make money at doing that anymore. FP&L is requiring us to sell at wholesale rates. Okay, so we're not going to make money doing that. What can we do with that instead? And those kind of innovations are things we want to look at. How can you use that heat transfer to create other things? If we're having, and maybe it's a way of changing plastic into other things. But that's the kind of things we need to be looking at. Those on a high level, innovative. They're making jet fuel out of plastic now. We've got a lot of plastic. So all of these things we want to be looking at. It is expensive, and there's no two ways about it. But I think if you look at the social cost beyond that, we have to look at that as well. And you have to compare those two things. That is where the educational awareness comes in, is that, it doesn't make sense to landfill. It makes economic sense. Waste management loves to landfill because it is the cheapest way to get rid of stuff. But in terms of greenhouse emissions, it's the worst way to do it. How do you let everybody recognize that and say, it might be cheap on the front end, but it's very costly on the long end for the entire planet. And I saw what St. Lucie County was doing. They did a huge educational awareness campaign because the contamination rate was so high. They are daily on the radio. They're daily on TV. They're daily in the press. And they brought their contamination rate from, I think it was 40% to single digit, because it is daily. And they know that they brought it to their schools. And so every school knows, every kid there knows how to recycle and how to do it right. I think these are the kind of things we're going to be needing to look at. The educational campaigns, what kind of demand we can create locally, how we can diversify that through the counties. We have our own revolving loans fund. Let's use those to attract innovators to do that. That's money we already have that we can ask manufacturers and entrepreneurs to come up with ideas. We have at Nova incubation centers that we're asking the best and the brightest come up with ideas. That's what we should be doing, and using those monies to do that. So you're asking where are we going with this? And
Commissioner Furr, I have several notes, which I will read momentarily from your comments.
Okay. I think I've covered enough.
Okay.
But I actually do get excited about this, only because I like to see all the possibilities. And it is not glamorous, but it is something we are going to have to kind of, I like a challenge. This is a challenge for all of us. And if we all work together, I think we can meet that challenge. And I look forward to it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Before I call on Chief Morales, Isabel, what I got out of Commissioner Furr's remarks, which was exactly what I was hoping to get, were one of the items we should discuss is public education. Sub A is cost. Sub B is how to recycle. Number 2 would be on recycling, the different uses and how we can better recycle glass. 3 would be different uses and how we can better recycle plastic. And 4, on what we would do with energy if we are going waste to energy, what we do with the energy after the new law requiring that it can only be sold at wholesale rates. I would also like to add to that, again, any question on environmental, we want to make sure that the ash we're creating is not itself an environmental hazard. Let me now call on Chief Morales. Jimmy, you're up, followed by Mayor Ziotti.
I certainly share in a lot of the comments made thus far on how we can work together. One of the challenging issues, and we're facing this now in Miami-Dade County, is where do you put these facilities, right? And in most of our counties, well, we've already heard, obviously in Monroe County, there is no place to put these facilities. But even in the larger counties, when you take into account population, environmental issues, logistic issues in terms of access for trucks and traffic and whatnot, you're usually got a handful of locations across a 3 or 4 county area. So if we're going to build one in Dade, for example, or you're going to build one in Broward, it's probably the delta of additional cost to go from 1 million tons of garbage that can be processed to 2 million is probably worth the investment, because most of the challenges are just getting it permitted and located and whatnot. And so again, if we can work together, knowing that there's a handful of locations, maybe you build larger facilities to handle more. Maybe the power that's generated by those facilities can then power a recycling facility. You use it that way, or power electric trucks, garbage trucks, as part of a way to sort of give back and have a net zero impact. But I do think part of it is also just we're going to be challenged as we grow, and these facilities probably, since there are going to be very few places to put them, where we put them are going to need to be able to take Monroe County's, and process it within our facility as part of that. So that also again gets to cost sharing, entering into contracts, committing to flow of garbage, so that you can finance those kind of discussions. I think are going to be part of it.
Thank you, Chief. Let me call on Mayor Ziotti, followed by Mayor Ross, followed by Council Member Cates. In that order, Mayor Ziotti, you're recognized, ma'am.
Thank you, Senator Geller. With regard to Monroe County, I find it hard to believe that we haven't reached out to other islands to see what they do, how they process. We're not the only ones that have coral reefs and the like. So how are they transporting? How are they dealing with garbage? That's what I want to see, is that initiative to go just beyond the tri-county to see what else. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel if somebody's already doing some type of
Right.
process. As far as recycling in general, I'm going to tell you that as far as my experience with my city, the biggest problem I have is with rental communities. We have a combination of dumpsters, and then we have a combination of, triplexes, fourplexes that have their own garbage
Right.
bins. They don't care. Quite frankly, they just don't. And so they're moving in and out, and on the weekend, they're just gonna put everything and fill up any bin possible, and what's left over, they're gonna put on the side of the curb for eventually bulk pickup. So you can do all the education in the world. You can educate your kids and have them do contests and things like that. But at the end of the day, rental communities just don't care. So who do we hold accountable when something like that happens? That's the difficulty that I'm having. And then lastly, I hear a lot of what's going to be in the air, what chemicals, but I also don't hear of any epidemiologists or pathologists on board either to bring in to ask those questions. We have all our experts as far as, the process and all of that, but I don't hear any type of medical doctor. So I think that would be very valuable to have as well. So that is all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Ziotti. And remember, members, what I'm really looking for are topics to come up at the October meeting. By the way, we normally finish precisely at noon. Because of the importance of this, I will extend this meeting to 12:15, but I intend to adjourn promptly at 12:15. Mayor Ross, followed by Council Member Cates. And by the way, I'm calling on people in the order that Ms. Cosio is letting me know that that you're up. So
Thank you. I'm going to keep it very
Mayor Ross.
brief. I'll keep it brief, Mayor. The counties that are involved here all have challenges. That we agree with, but what we have to look at are what are the county's individual strengths? What are the commonalities between the counties? And we need to play to that. For argument's sake, if Dade County turns around and says, we're building a WTE, then I'd like to be able to say, I'll have all my waste to energy sent up to you in a truck that ultimately will be energized by the waste to energy electricity that we'll have. And then it won't deadhead back. You're going to fill that truck once I empty it at your place. You're going to fill that truck up with something else that is brought back to my county or a different county. That truck is on the road all the time. And it's a net cost because it's not going to cost in the gas kind of situation. What we need, and an answer to your question and succinctly, is a topic of how can we better collaborate, period. Now, in order to do that, I think we all, and it tends to go what Mayor Ziotti said, we all need to be better educated. Find out what alternatives, as being Furhead indicated, what alternatives there are out there. And we need to play to that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Ross. Council Member Cates, you're recognized, sir. And by the way, that is the last person I currently have in the queue. If there's anyone else, again, council members or attendees or experts, please let Ms. Cosio know.
Okay, thank you. The point, there was a lot of great points and ideas brought up today. I just want to follow up and reiterate the importance of recycling in that it may not be a cost savings now, even if it becomes an expense. It's going to save us money in the long run and landfill space. So just as Commissioner Furr was brought up about glass, we know that down in the Keys and we have a lot of glass, but the importance of, we've talked about using glass to backfill canals to lower the depth of them so the water would flow better and have cleaner nearshore water. So there's so many uses for it. as we have these discussions, I think it's important that the companies, waste management and stuff, when we go to these meetings, if they could, come up with ideas how to recycle it more for our reuse. And that way, in the long run, even if we have to subsidize it, it'll be a savings, I believe. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Cates. And you brought up an interesting topic, which is, in addition, of course, to the recycling, to what extent will a lot of these things be done by the public sector? And to what extent should they be done by the private sector and the collaboration between the two? In some cases, it may be better for the public sector to be doing these things. In some cases, it may be better for the private sector. We should know these. That should be a topic for discussion. Are there any additional comments from anyone that wants to comment? Again, we are particularly looking for subjects for the October meeting. Mike Fernandez, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'm actually in a unique situation as a Broward resident and the county, Miami-Dade County Director of Solid Waste. So it's interesting concept there that we're being regionalized. But I've heard a few great, a couple of good things here. Mayor Ross mentioned about better collaboration with the strengths. I think that's something to look in. I think you just mentioned about the private public sector is a real important aspect of everything. Where maybe some of these are P3s or some of these are you let the private sector handle it, but you kind of join forces and maybe get better prices. But I think ultimately we need to figure out what we're trying to accomplish. I think we need to gather all this under one basket and try to figure out, is it waste capacity we're looking for? Is it better recycling rates, better reduction? Can we reduce some of this rather than just put in the waste stream somehow? So I think these are all interesting topics. I think there's a lot of good stuff that come up today. I think another thing is we need to look at opportunities with waste to energy. I really do. I mean, what opportunities are there with waste to energy in the sludge? Can we put sludge in waste to energy? Can we take seaweed into waste to energy facilities and reduce it and make energy out of it? We mentioned powering facilities. I think those are great opportunities. We could power county facilities. We could power electric vehicles to offset some of those costs that we rely on FPNL or the utility to purchase electricity. You could process your international waste. Maybe those are opportunities that come into the ports from the airports and your cruise lines. Those are opportunities there as well. And then ash, I know we mentioned, I heard the discussion of ash, but we're actually in the middle of here in Miami-Dade County, we're actually in a pilot looking how can we reuse the ash into concrete aggregate. So those are all interesting topics, but I really think, two things. One, what are we ultimately trying to accomplish in all those different components? And two, I like the concept is what, maybe we have some strengths, maybe we have some weaknesses. Every market, Monroe, Miami-Dade and Broward is all different. We're a fully integrated waste system here. We do the collection. We own the landfills here in the waste to energy facility. We run them. Monroe County transports their waste out. They have transfer stations down there through the Keys. I remember correctly, if I remember correctly, a lot of that waste has to be processed into an incinerator, into waste to energy from Monroe County. Broward County pretty much handles the unincorporated area, but everything else is pretty much franchised out. Different cities do their own thing. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, these are the important topics that what I've heard is we have to come up with ways of reducing what's going into our landfills. And everybody agrees on that. But even if we're able to reduce it by 75%, we're still going to run out of landfill space pretty soon. Maybe instead of 2026, it'll be 2032. We still are going to need to figure out alternatives for landfill, because we are all going to run out at some point in, whether it's 5 years or 15 years. Let me see if there are any additional questions or comments, because we are done in no more than 7 minutes. But if we have finished, are there any additional questions, comments, or discussion topics? Isabel, is there anybody in person that has any additional questions or comments, or online?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay. In that case, unless anybody has any additional comments, I'm going to end this topic.
I do.
Yes.
I do. I just, we're going to end the topic, but before we adjourn, because I know everybody has to run, I just want to again thank everybody for coming to the meeting, joining us virtually. And especially I want to thank CEO Morales and his staff. There are so many, I can't name them all. Kimberly's been especially helpful to me. And I want to thank the Miami-Dade County TPO, which has hosted us in this facility and provided all the administrative support to have a successful meeting, including Elizabeth Rockwell, Wilson Fernandez, and of course, Director Eileen Buckley. So I just wanted to, again, thank our hosts and thank all of you for a great meeting. And we will be working to take your ideas, flesh them out. So expect phone calls because you'll get them. And we'll look forward to our meeting in October for this topic.
Thank you, Ms. Gosia. Is there anything else that needs to come in front of us on any topic before I adjourn the meeting? Is there anything else? Going, gone? Mayor Udine, if he's still here, moves to adjourn. Is he still here? Okay.
Adjourn, Ziotti.
Okay, Mayor Ziotti moves to adjourn. Councilmember Kaplan seconds. And I never mind volunteering people. Please show the meeting adjourned at 12:10. Thank you all for being here.
Here, Geller, enjoy yourself in Canada.
And thank you,
I'll
Senator,
be back in a day or two.
for your vacation to do this. It's a great meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Isabel, I'm gonna just give you what I